Hello and welcome back to the Consistory of the Coelc YouTube channel. I'm your host for this video, Reverend Zabel of the St John's Evangelical Lutheran Church, located in Dalby, Queensland, Australia. And today we're continuing through our Bible study series on the 10 plagues, looking at plague 6, the boils. And our Bible readings from Exodus 9 verses 8 through to 12. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Take handfuls of soot from the kiln, and let Moses throw them into the air in the sight of Pharaoh, and it shall become fine dust over all the land of Egypt, and become boils breaking out in sores on man and on beast throughout all the land of Egypt." So they took soot from the kiln and stood before Pharaoh, and Pharaoh threw it in the air, and it became boils breaking out into sores on man and on beast. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boils came upon the magicians and upon the Egyptians. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not listen to them as the Lord had spoken to Moses. Now, just to get it out the way, what kind of God are we looking at here? Some people suggest it's the god Shu, who's the god of like dry winds, dust, stuff like that. And because the soot or ash or whatever you want to call it gets thrown into the wind, so they connect it with Shu. Basically, what are some interesting features of this plague? Well, one is that John Calvin points out that the mention of beasts here shows that not all livestock were killed, although as I mentioned in the previous study, we don't know the time difference between plague 5 and 6, and so the Egyptians could have got just more livestock back by this stage. The other thing is, there's now an increased punishment on the magicians. See, previously the magicians could replicate miracles, then afterwards the Lord stop them from replicating the miracles. Now the magicians are even being shamed to the point that they can't come and stand before Moses. And what is interesting also here is that the text never mentions Moses and Pharaoh having an interaction, but the fact that the magicians couldn't come and stand before Moses means that there definitely was an interaction that went on, even though it's not recorded. But the most key feature of this plague, and there's going to be something that's going to come up in the next number of plagues, is God hardening Pharaoh's heart. See, God back in Exodus 4:21, he promised Moses that he would harden Pharaoh's heart. But up until this stage, it had been Pharaoh hardening his heart. He hardened his heart when Moses came to meet with him the first time, and they did the whole serpents, the rod turns into snakes and eats the other rods. And then later, with plagues 1 through to 5, it says that Pharaoh hardened his heart. Now this is the first time where it says God hardened his heart. And so I'm not going to go too much into this. This might actually be a very small study, only because I'm going to go over this point into deeper analysis in the plagues to come. But basically, just to get started, God hardens his heart. Now God is hardening his heart because Pharaoh has hardened his heart. As some people said, Pharaoh hardened his heart first. And this is biblical. This connects with something like Luke 10:16, where Jesus says that those who reject the preaching of the apostles reject him, and they reject God, and therefore they'll be rejected by God. You can also get this in 1 Corinthians 14, the famous passage used for the women's ordination debate, where it says that those who don't recognize the Lord's command won't be recognized by him. Those who continue to be impenitent and unbelieving and deny and reject God are also rejected by him. But that's because, and we're going to touch on this more in future videos, but in Romans 9, particularly verse 18, although that whole section is really good in relation to this discussion on the plagues, but verse 18, Paul says that God will have mercy on whom he'll have mercy, and he'll harden whom he'll harden. And what's interesting there is the parallel. The hardening is compared with having mercy on. So hardening is having no mercy on. See, God does not actively cause people to reject him. See, we don't believe in this double predestination like the Calvinists. God does not force anyone to harden their hearts against him, as if God would need to. We see in the book of Ezekiel, when God is talking about the sprinkling with water, which is like a prophecy of the coming sacrament of baptism, Ezekiel talks about how God will remove our heart of stone and give us a new heart of flesh. You got David also in Psalm 51 praying to God to create in him a new heart. See, it's not that God has to harden our heart. If we're left to our own devices, we will harden our heart. You know, we see throughout scriptures we're enemies of God, slaves to sin, dead in our trespasses. As Luther says in the Small Catechism, it's only by the power of the Holy Spirit that I can believe in God and come to him. So without the Holy Spirit enlightening us, without God having mercy on us, we would harden our own hearts. And so God, by not having mercy on someone, is hardening their heart, but not actively hardening it. God is passively hardening it. Essentially, God is letting us harden it. He's not stopping us. A kind of, I won't kill you, but I won't save you. Or more, I won't kill you, but I'm not going to stop you from killing yourself. So we're going to go into this in more detail in the next plagues, because they talk a lot more about this concept of Pharaoh hardening his heart, and they give us more insight and more depth. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, so let's just save that for the next video. I've been your host, Reverend Jake Zabel. Goodbye and God bless.